The most powerful thing you can do isn't to chase, argue, or explain, it's to move on with grace. When you focus on your own growth and happiness, he'll be left facing the consequences of what he lost, while you thrive in ways he never imagined. Grace speaks louder than words because it communicates strength in a way that no argument or explanation ever could. When you respond to heartbreak, disappointment, or mistreatment with elegance instead of anger, you show that your sense of self isn't dependent on someone else's actions. There is a subtle but undeniable power in moving through life without letting someone else's poor choices dictate your emotional state. People who act without grace often leave a trail of chaos and noise, but someone who chooses composure demonstrates control, confidence, and clarity. That control is magnetic because it is rare and unshakable, and it signals to the world that you are not easily shaken, manipulated, or devalued. Grace is not about pretending everything is fine or suppressing your feelings. It's about acknowledging your emotions while refusing to let them control your behavior. You feel the hurt, the disappointment, or the frustration, but instead of reacting impulsively, you respond thoughtfully. You make choices that protect your peace and honor your worth, even when it's tempting to lash out or demand recognition. This form of self-respect communicates far more than words ever could because actions rooted in composure are consistent, deliberate, and unmissable. By maintaining your dignity, you create a standard of behavior for yourself that others must recognize, whether they like it or not. Walking away with grace also shifts the narrative from scarcity to abundance. When someone has taken your presence for granted, their reaction is often disbelief or confusion when you don't react the way they expect. They are used to having access to your time, energy, and emotional labor, and when that access is removed in a calm and confident way, they are forced to reckon with their own behavior. The silence that accompanies grace speaks volumes. It communicates that you are not available for manipulation, that your love and attention are not obligations, and that your life is moving forward without dependence on their approval. This is the kind of message that lingers far longer than any angry confrontation ever could. Grace also demonstrates emotional intelligence. It shows that you understand the situation clearly and that you are not willing to participate in cycles of drama or reactive conflict. People who act impulsively often reveal their insecurities or attempt to control outcomes, but those who move with grace reveal wisdom and foresight. By choosing composure over chaos, you send a signal that you are aligned with your own priorities and that your energy is not up for negotiation. This quiet confidence forces the other person to reflect on their own behavior because it removes excuses and distractions. They can no longer blame your reactions or misinterpret your intentions. Moreover, grace creates a lasting impression because it is enduring. Words can be ignored, misinterpreted, or dismissed, but behavior grounded in integrity and poise leaves a mark. When you handle endings, disagreements, or disappointments with composure, you create a memory of yourself that is powerful and unshakable. The other person may experience regret, confusion, or admiration, but regardless of their reaction, your grace ensures that you remain untouchable by negativity. You are no longer reactive. You are proactive in protecting your emotional and mental space. Finally, grace amplifies your personal growth. When you choose dignity over drama, you are free to focus on your own development, happiness, and success. You are no longer tethered to someone else's mistakes, insecurities, or immaturity. Instead, your attention is on building a life that reflects your values and your worth. This is the ultimate demonstration of power, not to force someone to recognize your value, but to live so fully and authentically that your presence and eventual absence communicate more than any words ever could. Grace, in this way, becomes both a shield and a beacon, illuminating your strength while ensuring your peace. Thriving is the ultimate response because it shifts the focus from seeking validation to creating your own life. When someone has taken you for granted or failed to recognize your worth, it's natural to feel the urge to explain, argue, or demand acknowledgement. Yet those efforts rarely lead to the respect or appreciation you truly deserve. Instead, the most powerful response is to redirect that energy into your own growth, happiness, and ambitions. Thriving doesn't just fill the void left by their absence, it transforms that void into a stage for your personal evolution. It shows that your value isn't contingent on someone else's recognition, and that your life is abundant and fulfilling even without their presence. Thriving is a visible and undeniable signal of strength. While he might have ignored your contributions or overlooked your care when you were actively trying to make things work, your success and joy cannot be ignored. People are wired to notice energy, confidence, and fulfillment. When you invest in yourself, whether it's building a career, pursuing passions, improving your health, or cultivating meaningful relationships, you radiate an energy that draws attention naturally. It's not about proving anything to him, but the byproduct is that he sees what he lost. Thriving becomes a mirror reflecting your worth back at someone who may have failed to appreciate it. The beauty of thriving lies in its authenticity. It's not performative or competitive, it's a reflection of your inner alignment. When you thrive, you are no longer reacting to his actions, words, or neglect. You are living according to your own standards and desires. This independence is profoundly attractive because it demonstrates self-sufficiency and emotional resilience. It signals that your life does not revolve around someone else's approval, and that your happiness is non-negotiable. The difference between trying to prove yourself and thriving is that thriving comes from a place of empowerment rather than neediness. Thriving also rewires your emotional responses. Instead of dwelling on the past or obsessing over what could have been, you redirect that energy toward creation and growth. You replace frustration with ambition, longing with focus, and disappointment with achievement. Each goal you pursue, each boundary you maintain, each small success becomes evidence that your life is moving forward independently. This approach not only accelerates your personal development, but also subtly communicates to him that his absence does not hinder your progress. Your value and momentum are intact, and perhaps even stronger without him. Furthermore, thriving fosters long-term empowerment. When you focus on your own growth and happiness, you build a life that is resistant to the fluctuations of other people's actions or feelings. You cultivate emotional stability, resilience, and clarity. You develop the ability to navigate relationships without losing yourself or compromising your standards. Thriving becomes not just a temporary response to loss or neglect, but a sustainable lifestyle choice that continuously elevates your self-worth and confidence. Finally, thriving creates a ripple effect that touches every part of your life. Your joy and fulfillment attract new opportunities, better relationships, and experiences that align with your values. You become magnetic not because you're trying to make him regret, but because your energy naturally draws what is compatible and meaningful into your life. Meanwhile, he remains stuck in the regret of what he failed to nurture, while you are moving forward, expanding, and flourishing. Thriving, in this sense, is the most graceful, silent, and powerful way to reclaim your narrative, assert your worth, and demonstrate that your life is abundant with or without him. Regret is a byproduct of your self-respect, because when you honor your worth, you stop tolerating behavior that undermines it. People who fail to appreciate someone often live in a bubble of convenience, assuming that attention, care, or emotional energy will always be available. They don't notice the value of what they have until it's gone, and even then, it takes time for the reality to settle in. By asserting your boundaries, choosing your peace, and refusing to compromise on your standards, You create a situation where the consequences of their actions are unavoidable. Your self-respect doesn't just protect you. It illuminates what they failed to honor, often leaving them confronted with regret they cannot escape. Self-respect manifests in both action and presence. It's in the way you disengage from drama without losing your composure, in the decisions you make to prioritize your growth over someone else's approval, and in the consistency with which you maintain your boundaries when someone has taken you for granted. Seeing you act with dignity and self-assurance can be jarring. It forces them to reflect on the contrast between your worth and the way they treated you. Their regret is born from the recognition that they underestimated your value. But the key difference now is that your actions are no longer contingent on their recognition. They are a reflection of your understanding of yourself. Regret becomes inevitable when your life moves forward without waiting for their validation. The more you focus on building yourself, your career, your passions, your happiness, the more glaring the contrast becomes between your thriving life and the lack of effort they invested. People often fail to grasp that when they neglect someone, the real impact is not immediate disappointment, but a slow accumulation of absence and independence. When you stop accommodating their negligence and redirect your energy toward your own growth, it creates a scenario where their inaction is reflected back at them, leaving a clear trail of lost opportunity. The power of self-respect lies in its subtlety. You don't need to argue, confront, or explain yourself to evoke recognition. Instead, by simply living according to your values, your life becomes a testament to what they overlooked. This quiet strength is often more painful to witness than anger or recrimination, because it highlights the gap between who you are and how they treated you. It demonstrates that your worth was never dependent on their acknowledgement. It existed all along, silently growing and flourishing independently. Regret also functions as a mirror for personal accountability. When someone experiences it, they are forced to confront the choices that led them to miss out on your presence. They may replay moments in their mind, analyze their behavior, and realize the cumulative effect of taking you for granted. Meanwhile, you are free from that cycle, moving forward and building a life that aligns with your standards. This asymmetry, your growth versus their remorse, creates a natural sense of justice without you needing to participate in any drama or manipulation. Another critical aspect is that regret emphasizes the cost of inaction. When someone neglects the importance of your value, the opportunity to benefit from your presence diminishes over time. By the time they recognize it, you have already shifted your priorities, set boundaries, and cultivated relationships that honor you. The regret they feel is therefore permanent in its implications. It doesn't change your trajectory, and it doesn't affect the decisions you've already made to safeguard your emotional and personal well-being. Ultimately, the byproduct of your self-respect is not revenge, it is liberation. By standing firm in your boundaries, prioritizing your peace, and refusing to compromise your value for someone who won't meet you halfway, you create a life that inherently showcases your worth. Regret is inevitable for them, but irrelevant for you, because you have already stepped into a life that reflects the person you were always meant to be. Strong, fulfilled, and completely untethered to someone who failed to appreciate your presence. Moving on doesn't mean forgetting. It means prioritizing yourself, and that distinction is crucial when it comes to reclaiming your life and your energy. Many people confuse moving on with erasing the past or pretending nothing happened, but in reality, moving on is an active process of choosing your well-being over lingering attachments. It's a decision to stop shrinking for someone else's mistakes or indecision, and to redirect your attention to the people, activities, and goals that nurture you. Prioritizing yourself doesn't erase the memories, the lessons, or even the emotional impact, but it does allow you to live fully without being trapped by them. When you choose yourself, you are essentially saying that your emotional and mental space is non-negotiable. You acknowledge that your energy is valuable and that it cannot be endlessly expended on someone who doesn't reciprocate. This shift from dependency to autonomy is transformative because it changes the dynamic entirely. Where once your thoughts, feelings, and actions may have revolved around his presence or approval, they now revolve around your growth and happiness. Moving on is not about making him feel loss or guilt. It's about reclaiming the emotional bandwidth you deserve and putting it into the right places. Prioritizing yourself also creates clarity. When you stop trying to force a connection that isn't aligned with mutual respect and effort, you gain perspective on what truly matters to you. You start to notice patterns, behaviors, and situations that were previously clouded by emotional investment. This clarity allows you to make conscious decisions about your future, your relationships, and the boundaries that protect your peace. You no longer act out of desperation or fear, you act from intention, and that intentionality is both empowering and magnetic. Moving on gracefully requires patience with yourself as well. Letting go is not instantaneous, it is a process of adjusting your habits, your thoughts, and your emotional reactions. Each step away from someone who no longer serves your well-being is a reaffirmation of your self-respect. The moments when you feel the urge to reach out, to explain, or to dwell are opportunities to reinforce your priorities. Every time you resist reverting to old patterns, you solidify your commitment to yourself. In this way, moving on is as much about internal strength as it is about external action. The act of prioritizing yourself also transforms the way others perceive you. When he sees you living fully, pursuing your passions, and cultivating meaningful connections, it becomes impossible to ignore your value. You don't have to announce it. Your life itself communicates it. Your growth and happiness are tangible proof of what he missed by failing to show up. This visibility is subtle but potent. It demonstrates that your worth is not contingent on his recognition and that your life is flourishing regardless of his choices. Furthermore, moving on opens space for healthier relationships and experiences. By detaching from someone who wasn't aligned with your worth, you create room for people and situations that reflect the respect, care, and effort you deserve. You no longer expend energy on trying to fix or maintain something that is inherently unbalanced. This freedom allows you to engage with life fully, to explore your ambitions, and to connect with individuals who match your energy and values. Ultimately, moving on gracefully and prioritizing yourself is an act of empowerment. It's a declaration that your life, happiness, and self-worth are more important than lingering attachment or unresolved frustration. By choosing to step forward, you reclaim control over your narrative, your choices, and your emotional landscape. In doing so, you create a life that reflects your true value, leaving behind someone who is left to reckon with their own decisions while you thrive in alignment with yourself. Emotional independence creates lasting power because it frees you from the need to seek validation or approval from someone who has not prioritized your worth. Too often, people find themselves tethered to others' opinions, actions, or moods, allowing those external factors to dictate their self-esteem and happiness. But when you cultivate emotional independence, you reclaim control over your life and your feelings. You no longer allow another person's choices, neglect, or ambivalence to determine your sense of value. This kind of independence is not about detachment from love or intimacy. It is about building a foundation within yourself that cannot be shaken by someone else's inconsistency or mistakes. Emotional independence starts with understanding that your peace and well-being are non-negotiable. It requires a conscious decision to prioritize your inner stability over external validation. When you stop seeking approval from someone who has not earned it, you begin to operate from a place of strength rather than neediness. You become resilient to disappointment because your worth is self-defined, not granted by someone else's attention or affection. This shift fundamentally changes the dynamic in any relationship. Instead of being vulnerable to manipulation or neglect, you set a standard for how you expect to be treated, and your presence alone communicates that standard. Independence also transforms how others perceive and interact with you. When you are emotionally self-sufficient, your energy changes. You no longer chase or overcompensate, and you no longer rely on constant reassurance. This creates a magnetic quality because it signals confidence, maturity, and self-respect. People are drawn to those who are complete in themselves, and at the same time, those who have underestimated you begin to notice the gap between your worth and their behavior. Emotional independence is therefore both liberating and subtly influential. It allows you to live fully while naturally highlighting what others failed to appreciate. Another crucial element of emotional independence is clarity. When your emotional state is not dependent on someone else, you can see situations clearly, make decisions without bias, and act in alignment with your values. You are no longer trapped in cycles of overthinking, hoping, or trying to fix someone else's neglect. Instead, you assess the reality of your circumstances with honesty and respond in ways that protect your energy and support your growth. This clarity is empowering because it removes doubt, guilt, and unnecessary drama, giving you the freedom to live life on your own terms. Emotional independence also reinforces your boundaries. When you are grounded in your own value, you are less likely to tolerate behavior that diminishes or disrespects you. You can disengage from toxic patterns or unbalanced relationships without fear of rejection or abandonment. Your focus shifts from trying to control outcomes or change others to taking responsibility for your own life and choices. In this way, independence is both protective and proactive. It preserves your emotional health while allowing you to attract connections that truly align with your worth. Finally, lasting power comes from the combination of self-respect, clarity, and consistent action. When you are emotionally independent, you build a life that is unshakable because it is rooted in your own growth, joy, and purpose rather than external circumstances. Those who failed to value you begin to realize what they lost, often when it is too late, but by that point, your independence ensures that their regret does not affect your trajectory. You are no longer tethered to their choices, you are thriving on your own terms. Emotional independence is the ultimate form of power because it cannot be taken away. It is cultivated within, sustained through conscious effort, and visible in every choice you make. Time reveals the truth because the impact of your actions, your growth, and your self-respect becomes undeniable as the days, weeks, and months unfold. When someone has taken your presence for granted, immediate recognition is rare. People often fail to appreciate what they have until it is no longer within reach. By moving forward, maintaining your boundaries, and prioritizing your own life, you allow time to work as a mirror. Gradually, your absence highlights the depth of your worth and the consistency of your character, creating a space for reflection that is unavoidable. This delayed awareness is often more powerful than any immediate reaction because it forces genuine realization rather than reactionary acknowledgement. Time amplifies the consequences of neglect or inattention. When you were present, he may have overlooked your contributions, assumed your patience, or relied on your energy without reciprocating. While you were giving freely, the imbalance may have gone unnoticed because the flow of effort made the dynamic feel normal. But when your focus shifts entirely to yourself and your life moves forward, the contrast becomes stark. The daily routines, the consistent energy, and the emotional support that were once taken for granted are now absent, and it is in that absence that the truth becomes clear. Over time, he begins to feel the weight of what he lost, not just in moments of reflection, but in the cumulative impact of his choices. Patience is key because transformation is rarely instantaneous. Your growth, your thriving, and your peace take time to fully manifest, and so does his realization. People often resist seeing the value of what they ignored until the pattern is undeniable. The days you spend prioritizing your goals, your happiness, and your boundaries accumulate into a life that speaks volumes without a single word. Time allows you to build that life authentically without performing for anyone else, while simultaneously allowing him the space to confront the consequences of his neglect. The truth of your worth emerges not through confrontation, but through the consistency and depth of your evolution. Time also reveals emotional maturity and resilience. While he may have reacted impulsively or ignored your needs in the past, your ability to sustain your peace and continue moving forward highlights the difference between immaturity and self-possession. The longer you remain committed to yourself, the clearer it becomes that your value is independent of his acknowledgement. By the time he recognizes what he lost, it's often too late for him to influence your path, because you have already established a life aligned with your priorities and your standards. This delay, ironically, solidifies the lesson in a way that immediate confrontation never could. Additionally, time demonstrates the permanence of change. When someone realizes your worth after you have moved on, the regret they feel is compounded by the fact that the opportunity to benefit from your presence has passed. This is not about punishment or revenge. It is a natural consequence of choices. You have chosen growth, self-respect, and fulfillment, and those choices cannot be undone. Time reveals that your life does not revolve around their recognition, and their awareness of your absence cannot reverse your progress. Your evolution becomes a living testament to the strength of your independence and the power of prioritizing yourself. Finally, time validates your journey and reinforces your self-confidence. As days and months pass, the life you have built through intentional choices, consistent self-care, and emotional independence becomes undeniable. The experiences you cultivate, the joy you embrace, and the relationships you nurture all reflect a value that he may have ignored, but that the world recognizes. Time reveals the truth not just to him, but to you as well, that your worth was never contingent on external validation, that your peace is your greatest asset, and that your ability to thrive is unstoppable. In this way, time transforms absence into clarity, loss into understanding, and independence into undeniable power. Moving on gracefully isn't about making him regret. It's about claiming your life, your peace, and your power. While he's stuck in what he lost, you're thriving, growing, and becoming the person you were always meant to be. Your worth was never his to define.